All right, so it should be one of our last days on site today. Almost everything's done. The only real type of framing we have to do is build a roof right next to us, which I'll jump onto in just a second. After that, the entire day is just going to be running over the entire frame, checking over everything. I've got quite a big list of missing stuff, missing bolts, hardware, fixings that we have to go through and do. So that's going to take over most of today. So man, whenever you got a second, can I just get a measurement with you to find out what this beam's going to be? Yeah, just butt me into the column. All right, so we've actually got 6 meters 05. I've asked for a 6 meter beam, so we may not even need to cut it. All right, that's cool. If you're happy to keep going through and doing what you're doing, I'll mark out these tags and do some checkouts. Alright, so this beam isn't set at the same height as the top plate. It's pretty close, but our trusses are actually going to hang slightly down below it. So I'm going to have to level this first one, level the M one, and then I'll run a string line so I know which height to shoot these on at. This might be a bit awkward though. Alright, that's it there. Even though the plan does ask for these end trusses to be flush with this 90mm wall, you always want to bring in your end truss between 5 to 10mm so that when I go through and build a parapet wall in here, there's no possibility that that truss could be impeding into that wall. I'm not going to have to worry about running a string line for these because the beam is level and at both ends the trusses sit down by 10mm. That's mint. When you get it good, since you are just using the 2 meter, you're able to slide it up and make sure it's still good when you hold it to the top. Nice. Thanks, Mitchie. No. I think it's starting to become a bit of a hot topic on whether or not to use a coil gun and coils to shoot on hardware, joist hangers, everything. Personally, I prefer not to use a coil gun. If you've seen some of my other videos, I do have the PPN shooter, the precision placement nail shooter, where you can shoot coil nails exactly in the holes, and it's the right size nail as well. For this frame, I'm subcontracting into a carpentry company and to a builder, and we're not getting paid to go through and hand nail or pay for the PPN nails and time to do every single hole. When you look at a job at this size, it makes a huge time difference. Even though it doesn't look as neat, it is still completely fine to use a coil gun on this hardware. I do know personally some inspectors are starting to knock back coil guns and a lot more people are going through hand nailing. I've spoken to a few inspectors that have inspected the last few frames and builds I've done, and I've been told they've actually not passed a few frames that have been used with coil guns, and that's because they haven't been done right. Obviously, we've got these pre-drilled nail holes on the joist hanger, and I think most carpenters, when using the coil gun, are going to be aiming to get the nails in those holes. It definitely looks neater if you do that. But if you're using a coil gun, you actually need to be aiming to avoid those holes. Even if you got your nails perfectly in the hole, they're slightly smaller than the clouts you get to hand nail these hangers with what they're intended to be used with. So on that note as well, you need to shoot 20% more nails with the coil gun than what it asks for. Typically you need 3 and 5 nails. So I might change it to 4 and 6. And all of those nails, I'm trying to make new holes through the steel, through the hardware, penetrate through that steel, and that makes it a strong, secure hold. So I'm going through doing these. Obviously it doesn't look anywhere as nice because I'm intentionally avoiding the holes. It looks rough, and normally I'll do everything I can to make the frames look as neat as possible. In this instance though, I will be sacrificing making the frames strong and actually pass. And when it comes to actually building something right and making it look neat, we're obviously going to build it right. We're loaded up now to keep going. I've got all the bolts that we need to go through, and now we can properly bolt off this beam we just put in. Those bolts are done, and I've got the last right angle bracket we need, which is for those beams at the top. So I'm going to run up, put this in quickly, and then I think all the bolts are done. That right angle bracket's done. I think today we're just going to be running around everywhere finishing stuff off. You're going to hear the coil guns going. That's going to be going non-stop today. I think the main thing we're trying to be doing is tying off missing straps. There's heaps of ply that hasn't been shot off. We just had a delivery with heaps more hardware, so the coil gun's going to be going off non-stop all day. In this section here, we do have 2 cross faces that have been missed in the spool that I'm going to throw on. And since there's only 1 coil gun here today, I'm just going to try quickly do these and hand nail them, potentially palm nail them. Sweet. Alright, they're good to go. I'm going to leave those now. I think it's going to be a waste of time if I try to hand nail everything. You can hear how much quicker that coil gun is. So I'm just going to keep moving on, and that's ready to go for when the coil gun gets here. Alright, so for downstairs, we've done none of the trimming blocks, no out brackets at all. Typically what we'd do is before we floor, we'd run over upstairs and drop into our trimming blocks from upstairs. It's so much quicker. Sometimes though we're under the pump and we don't have time to trim everything up before doing the flooring. There's so much going on right now, I hope you can hear me. But what I'm going to do now is just cut heaps of trimming blocks, and I'm just going to go through and only put in the trimming blocks we need for our brackets at the moment. We can leave everything else for lockup. For now though, we're just under the pump to try and get stuff ready for this inspection. So the entire purpose of these L brackets are to hold the wall from moving side to side. In terms of the process to install them, we can see we've got four holes at the bottom there. I'm going to put them on the top plate, do 4 nails into those holes. Those nails in place, I'm just going to come through and double check the wall and make sure it's plumb. Which, apart from a very bowed stud, that is plumb. So when it's plumb, I'm going to nail it off to the posi, to the blocks I put in, whatever I can nail it off to. And we have these 3 long slots to nail off the L bracket. Now the purpose for these long slots, opposed to having just more holes similar to the bottom, is so we can put our nail in the middle of the bracket, and they'll be like that. And as the house continues to get built, furniture gets moved in, weight gets added to the house, so there's a very good chance that these posies or trusses for when we do them upstairs are going to sag down ever so slightly. When that happens, obviously the L bracket's going to stay where it is because it's on the wall, but the nail will be in the posi and that will sag down slightly with the posi. If we didn't have this slot here, what would happen is when that sags down, it will turn this into a load point. The weight of those posies, the weight of that flooring above it, will no longer span across the load points, but it will now have this L bracket and will turn that into a load point. And honestly, the biggest concern you'll probably have is it will begin to squeak every time you walk across the area. Alright, so obviously this wall is just a nib wall. We've got a ton of movement in this right now. I'll grab that level. Alright, so that's actually dead plumb where it is right now. And now with that bracket done, that wall is solid, there's no movement in that anymore. Alright, I'm just going to run around and do a few more concrete screws. I think half of downstairs hasn't been done. This is actually going to be my first time trying out AEG's hammer drill. I've actually never used a hammer drill by AEG at all. Obviously this is from that limited edition kit I just got, and we've got the impact wrench as well, which we're going to try out. And thanks to the comments on this protective sleeve that goes over the top. In the unboxing video, I was trying to work out why the impact wrench had this protective sleeve over it, but the impactor and drill doesn't. And that's got to do with mechanics. When they're using the impact wrench inside cars, around motors, it's to protect the impact wrench in those settings. Impact, not impactor, is that what you're saying? Yeah, impact. I've got in a bit of trouble in YouTube comments. I'm calling it impacts. Impact drivers, impactors. Anyway, let's see how these tools go. Obviously, some of the boys have been testing this out though. One thing I mentioned when I was unboxing all these tools is how I like the blower, because this nozzle here is super bendy, which means in this instance I should be able to pinch most of it or even fold it over itself, and I can really, let's see if this works, try to direct that air down these holes. Yeah, look, that didn't really do a lot. Obviously, if there was dust in there, since the air is entering at the top, it's just going to push that dust to the bottom of the hole. Not the biggest deal though, we're not Chemset in it. If we were going to put Chemset in there, we definitely want to make sure there's no dust at the bottom. And to do that, we're going to need a blower with a nozzle that goes down to the bottom of the hole, and then when you blow the air, it's going to be at the bottom and push all the dust up. Anyway, let's see how this impact wrench goes. That's pretty good. The fact that it slows down at the end there is probably telling me that there is dust at the bottom of that hole, and it's really trying to dig into the dust to really hold down at the end. Regardless, that's a good tool, and I'm sure I'm also going to get ripped to in the comments for not using washers with these concrete screws. Yes, washers would be better. The engineering doesn't call for it because these bolts do have a flange head. So the head of these bolts do serve as a washer. That's all the engineering's called for. It's all the builder supplied because of that. It's going to do the job. It's completely fine in this area. But yes, it will be over the top and it will be better if we had a big square washer with these bolts.